After 786 days of investing in SCHD, I've learned something that completely changed how I see this ETF. SCHD is incredibly powerful, but the months where my portfolio held up best weren't just about SCHD. They were about pairing SCHD with the right ETF beside it. Today, I'm counting down the best ETFs to pair with SCHD in 2026, and I'll tell you exactly which ones I use myself and why. If we haven't met before, my name is Steve, and I document my real investing journey here on the channel. Real money, real results, shared every step of the way. Kicking things off at number 5, and this one is all about income. If your goal is reliable dividend income, but you want maximum diversification that isn't tied entirely to the US economy, this pairing was built for you. We're talking about international dividend ETFs, funds that work similarly to SCHD but focus on dividend-paying companies outside the United States. The two strongest examples here are SCHY and VYMI. I'll be transparent, this isn't the pairing I personally use, but it is absolutely a legitimate strategy for the right investor. What makes this pairing especially clean is that SCHD currently has zero overlap with both SCHY and VYMI, meaning you're adding a completely different set of companies while keeping a dividend-focused strategy intact. Now let's shift to the opposite type of investor. Some investors aren't trying to maximize income right now. They're trying to accelerate long-term portfolio growth. If that sounds like you, pairing SCHD with a growth ETF becomes very compelling. The best examples here are QQQM, SCHG, and VUG. This pairing works best for younger investors, aggressive accumulators, people with a long time horizon, and anyone who is comfortable riding out volatility in exchange for more growth potential. SCHD brings quality and income. A growth ETF brings acceleration and heavy exposure to technology. There is some overlap. SCHD and QQQM, for example, overlap by roughly 5% by weight, but the emphasis is completely different. SCHD is filtering for dividend quality. Growth funds are tilted toward earnings expansion and tech leadership. 2024 was a perfect real-world example. When SCHD lagged during the tech rally, and it did massively lag, investors who held a growth ETF alongside it didn't feel left behind. The growth side picked up the slack. That balance matters emotionally just as much as it does mathematically. The main risk is volatility. Growth funds can swing hard, and they're not always easy to hold during a pullback. Bottom line, this pairing makes sense the most if you're still deep in the accumulation phase and want more growth potential alongside SCHD. Next is a category many investors overlook, but it fills a very real gap that SCHD leaves behind. SCHD is heavily tilted toward large established companies. That's part of what makes it stable and income focused. But it also means you're getting very little exposure to smaller businesses. And over very long periods of time, small caps have gone through stretches where they outperform large caps, sometimes by a meaningful margin. The reason is simple: smaller companies often have more room to grow. This pairing works best for long-term investors who want broader diversification across company sizes, patient accumulators who aren't primarily chasing income, and investors who want to fill the gaps that SCHD naturally leaves. Good examples here include VB, which tracks the broad small cap market, VBR, which focuses on small cap value companies and is a natural fit alongside SCHD's value orientation, and VXF, which covers the entire US market outside the S&P 500, giving you mid and small cap exposure in one fund. The trade-offs are real. Small caps can be more volatile, they can underperform for long stretches, and they typically don't produce much income. So this is not an income play, it's a diversification and long-term growth move. Bottom line, if your goal is a more fully diversified equity portfolio alongside SCHD, adding a small cap or extended market ETF is a thoughtful, slightly more advanced move that most investors in this space never think about. Now let's talk about investors whose focus is boosting portfolio income today. If your goal is increasing cash flow, especially as you approach or enter retirement, this next category becomes very interesting. This bucket includes REITs, ETFs like VNQ, and covered call ETFs like JEPI or JEPQ. This pairing works best for income maximizers, investors approaching retirement, and portfolios built specifically around generating consistent monthly cash flow rather than long-term growth. REITs bring real estate exposure, a completely different economic driver than traditional stocks. Covered call ETFs focus on generating higher income now by selling options against the portfolio, which can significantly increase how much cash your portfolio pays you each month. REITs typically have very low overlap with SCHD, which helps keep your income sources diversified across different parts of the economy. Just use these intentionally. REITs are sensitive to interest rates. When rates rise, REITs can struggle. Covered call ETFs can cap your upside during a strong bull market, since part of the potential gain is sold away in exchange for that income. These are tools with a specific job, not general purpose additions. Bottom line, if maximizing monthly income is your priority, this pairing gives you two powerful ways to do that alongside SCHD. Before we get to number one, I want to clear up something I see misunderstood in the comments constantly. Overlap between ETFs is not automatically bad. What actually matters is emphasis, and let me give you a concrete example so this really clicks. Take VTI, which owns over 3,700 US companies, basically the entire US stock market. You might assume your money is spread evenly across all of them, but that's not how it works. VTI is market cap weighted, which means the bigger the company, the more of your money goes toward it. So even though VTI owns thousands of companies, roughly 30% of your money you invest ends up concentrated in just the top 10 holdings. And most of those are large technology companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia. So VTI is technically the whole market, but the emphasis where your dollars are actually working hardest is heavily toward big tech. SCHD, on the other hand, emphasizes dividend quality. Its biggest weightings are in sectors like financials, healthcare, energy, and consumer staples, not technology. That's why two funds can share some of the same holdings and still do completely different jobs in your portfolio. It's not just about which companies show up in the fund, it's about how much of your money is actually going toward each one. Keep that in mind as we get into number one, because this is exactly where that idea matters most. For most investors, and this is what I personally do, the most balanced and time-tested partner for SCHD is a broad US market fund. That means S&P 500 funds like IVV or VU, or total market funds like VTI, ITOT, or SCHB. This pairing works best for almost every type of investor, from beginners just getting started to experienced investors managing large portfolios. If you want one pairing that balances income stability and long-term growth without overcomplicating things, this is it. Here's where I'll be transparent because I think it matters. I put $3,930 into SCHD through this daily $5 experiment, and that position has grown to over $4,700. I'm running the exact same experiment with VTI. In parallel, same start date, same amount, and it tells a very similar story. And beyond both of those, my largest position by far is VU inside my retirement account. So when I say this pairing works, I'm not reading it off a chart. I live it every single day. Bottom line, for most long-term investors, SCHD paired with a low-cost S&P 500 or total US market fund is still one of the most efficient strategies out there. It's what I do, and it's where I tell almost any investor to start. I'd love to hear from you. Which ETFs are you pairing with SCHD right now? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to follow my $5 a day SCHD and VTI experiment in real time, and I also include a free SCHD one-page breakdown, check out my Patreon. Link is in the video description. If you're not sure what to watch next, check out this video right here to find out how much SCHD you need to own to replace a full-time income. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.